We're all treaty people of Saskatchewan and of Canada because it's not only us as First Nations that signed treaty. We signed treaty with the province, with the federal government of Canada. And you got to remember, we did not write a treaty. The federal government of Canada wrote treaty. And they sure knew how to make an X when they wanted to take our land from us. And they sure knew how to offer alcohol to our leaders way back in the early 1900s. Get them drunk, and then all of a sudden the Indian agent would be signing an X and saying that, yeah, he signed. Well, anybody could make an X. So that's one of the things that Mr. Ketosis is probably going to give us a history on why a treaty was signed. Ketosis is a Plains Cree from the Poundmaker Cree Nation. He is an associate professor of Indian Studies who assisted in the implementation of a bicultural Indian Studies program. Eric specializes in tribal government, nation-to-nation, treaty-based process, spokesperson for Treaties 1 to 11, with a mandate to assist in maintaining original treaty and crown relations, and not the federal government self-government process of Section 35 rights. Eric was a lead representative at Treaties 1 to 11 during Charlottetown Court and constitutional discussions. So with that, here is Mr. Ketosis.
Good morning, good morning, good morning. Kapyo takamskano keteyak seyak napyo skwilok chiefs and councilors, young people, all of you, ladies and gentlemen who are in here, strangers and aliens, good morning. As mentioned here numerous of times of who we are and where we come from, and I happen to come from the Poundmaker Cree Nation, or the Poundmaker territory, if we can call it. It's one of the unique lands that became known as Poundmaker's Reserve. The original name of where we live is Lookout Hill Territory. That in 1881, that Poundmaker and his followers and advisors regrouped after the treaty signing. And they knew that the agents, Poundmaker was a counselor under Chief Red Pheasant during the deliberations, treaty making at Fort Carlton. Poundmaker was appointed as proxy spokesperson since Red Pheasant was a hereditary chief, but who was young and kind of wet behind the ears. So the Elders Council agreed that an elderly person should be leading the deliberations, and that's how Poundmaker got appointed. But shortly after treaty making, the agents came along and the missionaries and started working against the chiefs and to relocate and do this and do that, and the distribution of provisions, it was all upside down. And then it was the leadership that were agreeing. So Poundmaker and his advisors didn't like this, and his followers. It says, if Red Pheasant Council and their people are going to go this direction, he says, we have to do something to maintain Kayateuskan. Okay? Every tribe in North America has these translations. Okay? Say this word, Kayate. Say that. Kaya teuskan. Kaya teuskan anay sinu. Say that. Anay sinu. Kaya teuskan human of this island. Nistamema gan. Nistam. Very first. The very first human being that God paid attention to as He created them, these human beings. Our beginning of time. Our beginning of time. We go that far. Battle River people are entrenched in their territory. Battle River is the North Battleford region of Treaty 6, Battleford region of the Cree territory. Always has been since the beginning of time, since the beginning, or since for time immemorial, we can use borrow some of these words. We've always been the Battle River people. But not all of us were always been part of Battle River. Others joined in. So, Nakumamante, 2 years ago, I got appointed as the spokesperson for Treaties 1 to 11. And this is one of the most hardest tasks that a person can have, especially in 2018. I reluctantly accepted, because I know for a fact that I would be a standalone person, maybe eventually to end up being a very standalone person, because the developments and the influence and the intrusion of federal agents, again, the machinery, and it's reared its ugly head again for us to walk away from our treaty. Developing programs and services and processes for us to walk away from what God gave us. And this is very scary for us, our children, their children, the ones that are coming, still in their mother's tummies, the natural garden, and the unborn. If we make this mistake in 2018 and proceed with the Iran process, our future is detrimental. We don't know what it's going to bring. But I have a feeling already what it's going to bring. Because the people that agreed into these processes early, 15, 20 years ago, are starting to feel the effects of it. This has been happening last 15 years, 20 years in the making. So when we met different times across Canada, across treaty territories, our home reserve, our Treaty Council talks, Battle River Treaty Council, we decided that we make an attempt to ask and to influence others to reconsider, okay, and what we call reinvigorating Treaty Crown relations. You were eloquent in your questions and your concerns. Yes, we have been, since 1969, 1948, when you do the research, chronological order of the amendments of the Indian Act, and especially with the implementation of regionalization, regional governments, regional First Nations organization, and what we call so-called tribal councils. They've been in existence now for 3 generations. Regionalization has been in effect for 3 generations. Notice when you go to meetings, when you go to gatherings, treaties of Saskatchewan, treaties of Alberta, treaties of Manitoba, treaties of Ontario. The language that we've adopted, First Nations, the language that we've adopted and start using. And our most powerful, influential people are using these terms. And I call it straight out. Okay? If you see a spade, what do you say? Do you say it's a diamond? If you see a horse, what do you say? It's a cow? No, you say it's Mr. Tim. Mr. Timana. Okay? So I come from a long line of warriors. A long line of I don't give a damn if you step on toes on whoever it is. A long line. And it's been passed down generation to generation. In 1989, this task was passed on to me to carry on. The real, traditional, most ideal indigenous thought of who we are, where we come from, how the treaty making took place, and how it's supposed to function in 2018. So in the last 6 months, 8 months, finally, where I come from, Battle River Chiefs, agreed to formalize this table. 2, okay, abandon Section 74 of the Indian Act. Let me start with this. Okay, it's 11:11. You're supposed to make 4 wishes, whatever that means, as we speak here. Whatever. According to my friend, when it's 11:11, you're supposed to make 4 wishes and pray they come true. I want to go to the first slide. First of all, here I know I see you. Okay. I'm really intrigued that some non-Indian people are here. Thank you for being here, sir, and ladies and gentlemen. We need to learn this together because we're treaty partners. You're not treaty people. We're the treaty people. Indigenous peoples are the treaty people, not non-Indians. And let's get that straight. And if you ever come and gas up on Pound Maker, I would exercise a treaty tax exemption. Did you ever go to gas up in Indian gas station? Did you have to pay tax? Yeah. But I go gas up same place, I don't have to. That's not, ladies and gentlemen, I see no tribal people, regardless if you're Anishinaabe, Nahio, or like me, Apito Nakota, Nahio Nakota. Now, here's Kohtawino. When Kohtawino rearranged, renovated, the last renovation of Mother Earth. The renovation had to happen because the previous did not do right. Time and time again, it happened. So North America, ladies and gentlemen, here we are as the original people of North America. Original people still, although the line was created to create the 2 countries, but still, we are still proven to be the original people of this great island. And prophecy, everything that we know was learning through spiritual ties. And that you cannot deny. Once you deny that for yourself, then there's a problem. Kaya no migusuin, okay, spiritual gift, spiritual blessing, how to survive, how to work with kimigusun, the land, the natural resources, and never to run out of natural resources for your survival. Something always to be there, regardless of the changes of time. God's promise. Igawi knows promise. Not umaganti. And although once this map was made in the early 1800s, the British and others had to prove the population, that they've consented to the populations to not like Christopher Columbus, if you don't bring enough diamonds, I'll cut down at your wrist. No. But it happened. Okay? Here we are. In order for others to gain land and our resources, there had to be a very ugly deed to be performed. And it took place in Todemtic time and time again. In 1850, our population in the northern part of America was 25 million. As we speak today, the national population of Indian ancestry, 2.5 million. Treaties 1 to 11 population, I think it's 1.2 million. That's all there's left. That's all there's left of us. For others to gain the land and our natural resources. And it's a very ugly way. But it had to happen because our ancestors previous to that did not live right. They went to the dark side, to the deepest of the dark side that you can reach to perform their arts against one another. Stepping over natural rule of law. Natural rule of law. Eso is the strongest law that you can have. Is to be granted to exercise God's law. And everyone was given that in every island. But we're the only ones that I don't want to say only, but we're one of the groups or one of the indigenous peoples that have kept it alive. So this reduced the populations, but there are those territories. Most of us are mentioned in there. To this day, the Nahil territory is still the biggest linguistic group in Canada. Bigger than the Navajo. All of these tribes, some of these tribes no longer exist. Wiped out, especially in America. In Canada, same thing. Why did that happen? Our great-great-great-grandfathers did not do right. And this form of punishment came on us, 4 generations to suffer. And most of us now are being impacted by those 4 generations of suffering. They had prophesied the coming of the non-Indians to this island. There were we had a Nahil delegation that were invited. And then that arrival of those permanent settlers happened in 1885. And then the pipe that came was brought to invite delegates. Said that we are to learn the way they are. We are to embrace the new technology they're going to bring. We are not to try and be like them ever. Embrace their ways of life. Embrace the ways that's going to make our life easier. Because in the 1300s, women were still using needle booms, everything rocks, and they were hunting the hard way. So God was satisfied that we lived to the closest way of His way. And He granted us new technology to come upon our land. The prophecy was made a way ahead of time. There will be others that will come. They will arrive sickly. But welcome them, help them to get well. They are going to bring technology. They're going to bring things to make our life easier. Those were our instructions, and we followed them. My guy says there was going to be there will be 4 waves. First one, says the second one, he says, you watch out for. The third wave, he says, the one that's going to come and take. What does that remind you of? What happened to our ancestors? What happened to our parents? What happened to our older brothers? They came and got taken. An attempt to take lands and your natural resources, what you would give, he says, but there'd be the 4th wave. He says, that one that will help. One that will have a similar spirited heart as you. Will feel for the land, feel for you. Will understand your thought, your heart functions. And they will want to support. So we've experienced all of these. So what do we do today? Let's see the next slide. On everything and anything, is through spiritual messages, how to conduct their business. And then these were to live side by side. Canada, accepting the Constitution, conceded that it does not have any power to interfere with our inherent rights. Education is an inherent right, treaty right. Grassroots people as a collective are inherent and treaty right holders. Doesn't matter where you live because this is your land, it's still your land. Regardless if you live off reserve or if you live on reserve, the rights are still yours. Next one. It all started in 1868 when the first chiefs were invited by Queen Victoria. Because when our elders spoke to Alexander Morris at Fort Carlton, he spoke of the new way of life. What you have now, you shall have then. What I promise is on top of it. Okay? What you have now, you shall have. What I promise is what's on top of it. They're the ones that wanted the land and the natural resources. The demands that, and I see them were put to the commissioner, Treaty Commissioner Alexander Morris. What he agreed to are the tribal terms of treaty making, not the Crown terms. So one of the early meetings that took place was this year. And that has come up the first Indian Act, the original Indian Act, 1868. And the Crown mentioned this is how we do things in other islands. When we meet with the owners of those islands, the land, we make this arrangement. that new order. Right here, of how you're going to survive in that new way of life. When Alexander Morris was asked, how are you going to compare the original promise that we are never to run out of natural resources or a way for survival? Alexander Morris had to go back to Ottawa to do more research. And according to the research, and this is what he went and looked at, the legal counsel, the Crown's legal counsel of that day, and then they referred to the commencement of the Indian trusts, the tribal trusts. Because in there it states that you would be entitled to, the whites pay the taxes, you are entitled to 3%. 3% of timber, $3 stumpage, 5% mines. If you have money in the bank, it is 5%. Also, game money is yours. If the whites crowd you, you are to go to the superintendent and put a complaint. You will take up to a lawyer and will be prosecuted. So this is the bargain. This year is 1665. Comes the year 1835, but as long as the sun shines, it cannot change. It cannot change. Actually, next slide. So, when we are talking about this today, when treaty making took place in Treaty 6 territory, when Alexander Morris left treaty, was leaving Treaty 5, he says, I now must go and consult with Willow Creek and Battle River. See, Willow Creek is Duck Lake Lobster territory. That's their original territory, after Scott. Ours is Battle River. Battle River Circle, the original chief's circle. Post-treaty, it became the table. Treaty table for Battle River people. The terms, the holy terms, the sacred terms of the treaty. How we must respect them, how we must not ever interfere with them, regardless of process that's brought to you. You must maintain the treaty process, or you will pay the price. Or you will pay the price. Now, the first people that are impacted are the ones without treaties. But they still have inherent rights, indigenous rights that override treaty, that override common law, Canadian common law. Override, okay? Stronger than. But they were the first ones that entertained the modern treaty making with Canada and the provinces. And there's a document there that's passed around. The languages sounds good. But those are the terms that they accepted. How many of you saw the Neshka press release? I came out a couple days ago. Okay. 10 houses had to be vacated. You know why? Because once they agreed into that process, federal and provincial process with Canada, not the Crown, with Canada, government of Canada, they agreed to all terms to be Canadianized. We kind of kind of neo twist of the Canadianization. Canadianized. Pretend Canadian. Now, today, they have to move out. And those houses are going to be sold. If you don't pay attention to the wording, to the intent, Canadian intents, we're going to get into big trouble and put David. And unfortunately, it doesn't matter where representatives come from in Canada or treaty territories. Our organizations got covertly programmed to co-facilitate Canada's objectives. To co-facilitate Canada's objectives. Next slide. Oh yeah, okay, hang on. Excuse me. So Willow Creek, Battle River. The adhesions are Fort Pitt, Onion Lake Agency. All the ones, St. Paul, Alberta, Cold Lake, Bonneville, Onion Lake, that's their treaty office. And then there's the Amiskwachi adhesion. Those are the four nations. Hobima, they call themselves four nations. Musqueam or Hobima, Alberta. And then there's a Shell Lake Agency. All the ones that come from Shellbrook area. Whitefish, Sandy Lake, Mistawaka. 1899, adhesion, Malanosa. And subsequent adhesions, man by man. The last one was Solomon, 1957, Solo, 1957, adhesion to treaty. The original treaty, not the modern treaty. So here's some information that how these things were affirmed, so the treaty still stands, and how it was affirmed in treaty making 1876. Next slide. How we are to survive. When Alexander Morris went back to Ottawa and came back to obtain consent hereto of her subjects inhabiting the said tract land, to make treaty arrangements with them, so that they may be peace and goodwill between them, Her Majesty, and that they may know and be assured of what allowance they are to count upon and receive from Her Majesty's bounty and benevolence. The sacred trusts. One of those trusts, as we speak, sits at $2 trillion. How much is $2 trillion? It generates $35 billion annually. And the government gets their transfer payments. Indian Affairs gets their transfer payment of a budget of $8 billion plus for 5 years. And then we were to fight over that across Canada. And there are mechanisms put in until you are hungry, until you are dying of thirst. That's when they'll come to you to agree to their terms. And that's how it's set up today. Why are people reorganizing in treaty territory? Tuesday, I was in Treaty 8, Fort Vermilion, High Level, Alberta. Treaty 8 are the holdouts. They don't want what you got there. They want to rewrite it. They want to rewrite it into true treaty-crown relationship terms, the right terminology. Yesterday, the other tribal councils met. On Tuesday, we're going to sit down and do our due diligence in providing documents and information to give to the leadership so they could adequately reaffirm, reinvigorate treaty crown relations accordingly. Not to what that paper says, for you to walk away from your treaty, to walk away from your inherent rights. to walk away what God gave you. But you're the power. Poundmaker citizens are the power. And when we take a vote under traditional custom governance, it's not the law that prevails. It's the will of the people that prevails. If you don't like what's going on, what's kaisinitig, our reserves, our traditional lands, our reserves, or whatever we call them, 35 and under are represented by 75% of the total population. What's kaisinitig from each reserve rise